How's it going, guys? It's K Cars, and in today's video I wanted to give you guys a long-term driving review of my 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ with a 3-inch lift. So let's go ahead and get on the road. So guys, just to start off here, if you guys are new to the channel, this is my 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ, and like I said, I do have a 3-inch lift from Rusty's Off-Road, which I got installed about 2 years ago. And I did also release a long-term review video of that lift kit, and I figured I would also do a driving review after 2 years of getting that lift kit installed as well. So wanted to first start off by saying this lift kit has really been holding up very well. And as you guys know, I don't do any kind of like extreme off-roading or anything like that, but I do occasionally take this Jeep, off-road and, drive it not on the asphalt and stuff like that. But I really have to say this Jeep with the Rusty's Off-Road lift kit is really holding up very well. Now, this Jeep also does have 107,000 miles on it, and it has been holding up very well as well. So ever since I got that lift kit installed, I've probably put, I want to say, like 3,000 to 4,000 miles on the lift kit. So, we definitely have been driving the Jeep with that lift kit. Now, of course, 3,000 to 4,000 miles is not a lot for, 2 years or so, but I definitely do have a good amount of experience driving with this lift kit. And also, in addition to the 3-inch lift, we also do have 31-inch mud tires, which are Pro Comp Extreme MT2, 31 by 10.5. Now, first off, I did want to start off by saying, obviously I've seen your complaints with how the lift kit and the Jeep has been holding up, like I said. I do also have some minor observations that I did want to share with you guys today. So the first one is going to be the turning radius. Now, I do think that this XJ does have pretty good turning radius. And of course, with the 3-inch lift and 31-inch tires, we did have to trim just a little bit on the front bumper end cap so it wouldn't rub. But whenever I do make tight turns, then the Jeep actually does rub on the mud flaps a little bit. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now and then also show you guys an outside view as well. So I'm going to turn, just listen if you can hear it. So you can kind of hear it right there. Now I'll do turn passenger side. See if you can hear this. Okay, so passenger side doesn't rub as much. Now I'm going to give you guys a quick outside view. So there you guys can probably barely hear, but the front tires, of course, do rub on the mud flaps. Now, of course, I could easily fix that just by taking the mud flaps off or just trimming a part of the mud flap, just cutting a part of it off. And like I did also mention, we did have to trim a small part of the front bumper end caps as well, which I did also want to get out and show you guys what that looks like here as well. So right here is the front bumper end cap where we actually had to trim just a little bit right here so the front tires would not hit. And then of course we do have the same thing on the passenger side as well. Now if I'm just kind of making a normal turn here, so a 90-degree turn onto this road, we'll see what this looks like. See if it rubs. So it didn't rub right there. And then of course if I'm going over speed bumps just like this and I'm turning at the same time, of course the tire is going to be closer to the mud flaps just because it's compressed more, so it's going to rub at even less turning. So that's kind of one downside that I've noticed so far. But then when it comes to actual drivability, a lot of people do ask me about fuel economy and acceleration for re-gearing purposes and stuff like that. And I have to say, I really don't think that it's necessary to actually re-gear only with 31-inch tires. I do think that maybe with 33s, that's kind of the minimum tires that would actually require re-gearing. Probably require it, but it would just be better with new gears on them. So of course, I believe the stock gears on this Jeep are 355s. And I've had zero issues with, acceleration or anything like that that would actually, require or encourage me to re-gear this Jeep. So that's just one thing that I want to touch on in this review, is that I really don't find it necessary to have to re-gear. Now, one thing that I did notice is that whenever I'm at high speeds and driving up an incline, for example, if I'm at like 50 miles an hour or anything above that, then I've noticed that sometimes the Jeep has trouble downshifting whenever I have to build up speed and actually accelerate. Here's just a normal acceleration, not doing anything too crazy. And we can easily get up to the speed limit. And what I've noticed is that sometimes whenever I'm, merging onto an interstate or something like that, or starting from a red light and the light turns green, everyone behind me kind of seems like they're annoyed because I'm not accelerating as fast as they would like me to. I don't know if everybody's just so impatient and in such a rush that they don't like that I'm not accelerating at the pace that they would like. But I really don't think that this Jeep is underpowered or undergeared. It does have 190 horsepower stock, which I think is enough for this Jeep that weighs this much. I believe this Jeep weighs around 3,400 pounds, which is pretty light in my opinion. And then back to the downshifting issue. Like I said, I've noticed that whenever I'm driving up an incline and I have to accelerate, the Jeep just has trouble downshifting into a lower gear to actually be able to accelerate. Now, a lot of people have told me that I just need to adjust the kickdown cable, and I still have not done that. And, you know, to be honest, I've actually not experienced that issue recently, so I kind of just let it go because it hasn't been happening at all. So I'm kind of happy about that. Then on the other side of that, when it comes to braking, as you guys should probably imagine, when it comes to bigger tires, that's a lot of rotational mass to actually slow down. And to be honest, with 31s, I haven't noticed any kind of difference whatsoever coming from the stock tire size either. So there really hasn't been much of a difference, if I'm being completely honest, when it comes to the drivability of this Jeep. The main issue that I've actually noticed personally is just the suspension kind of being a little bit more bouncy. Now, by bouncy, I'm not saying that that's like a negative thing or anything. I just noticed that whenever I'm going over bumps, it kind of jumps up and down a little bit harder than it would with the stock suspension. So obviously, that's kind of something that I would expect from an upgraded suspension just like this, or a lifted suspension. So it's really not a complaint whatsoever. And I also do think that maybe I was just so used to the stock suspension. And as you guys know, if you're into these old XJs, that the stock suspension on these XJs is known to be very saggy and very soft. Especially the rear leaf springs are known to be very saggy. That's why if you see an old XJ with the stock suspension, you oftentimes see that the rear of the Jeep kind of looks like it's lower than the front. So that's kind of one downside of the stock suspension. I think that's also one reason that, you know, this new suspension kind of seems more bouncy to me and more stiff as well. So, you know, that's basically the main kind of thing or observation that I've had coming from the stock suspension to this 3-inch lift kit, is just the fact that it's more bouncy whenever I'm driving like over bumps, speed bumps, or anything like that. And, you know, that's pretty much the most obvious observation that I've had. Now, whenever I first got the lift kit installed, my first drive ever, I was kind of listening for a very common problem that happens to lifted XJs, which is driveline vibrations. Now, there's really no set amount of lift that could cause driveline vibrations, but if you do have driveline vibrations after lifting your XJ, then it's probably a good idea to get either a transfer case drop kit or a slip yoke eliminator. Now, in my opinion, as you guys know, I did go with the slip yoke eliminator, and that's probably the most correct way to actually fix those driveline vibrations, as opposed to just dropping the transfer case an inch. I wanted to also demonstrate to you guys another turn here to see if we rub. So just going over this turn normally how I usually would. And once again, no rubbing whatsoever. It's not even rubbing the mud flaps that time either. So, you know, when it comes to the whole rubbing thing that I mentioned earlier, it's really not an issue whatsoever unless you're, you know, trying to make a tight turn. That's basically the only time that it rubs. And even then, I could just simply take the mud flaps off and I would completely get rid of that issue. Now, in my opinion, I've kept the mud flaps on. It's not really a big deal for me because I like the way the mud flaps look, and obviously it also helps to keep the dirt off the body of the Jeep. Then also another common thing when it comes to Jeeps, now this can apply to Wranglers as well as these old Cherokees, is that they like to walk around the road, especially on windy days. Now, a lot of people, unless you've actually driven a Jeep, a lot of people don't actually know what that feels like because they think, like, you know, just learn how to drive and that won't happen. Well, that's not always the case on a very windy day when you're driving a vehicle that has the aerodynamics of a brick and it has a lot of surface area for the wind to actually move the vehicle on, like, around the road. Now, when it comes to that type of scenario, it really hasn't been too difficult to actually control, and I've never actually ran into any kind of issues with that. Now, obviously, when you're driving high speeds and a gust of wind hits you, then of course you have to be ready for that to actually happen and be able to steer out of it and just be able to compensate for that happening. But it really hasn't been much of an issue. Now, I do think it might be a little bit worse on the bigger Wranglers, like the newer ones, for example, because it really hasn't been too much of an issue for me. Then when it comes to the handling with this new lift kit of this old Jeep, you know, obviously it's not going to be great. It's not meant to handle very well. It's made to go off-road, and that's what it's great at. But I will say there is a good amount of steering wheel play. It was like that with the stock suspension as well, so it's not anything that the lift kit actually caused. If you guys watch the steering wheel here, you can see I can move it around quite a bit before it actually, like, affects the Jeep steering. So, you you know, I can do it this much and it's still not really moving the Jeep at all. So right there is probably like the minimum amount that I can input into the steering wheel for it to actually move the Jeep. So, you know, if I'm just moving it like this, it's literally not doing anything to the Jeep. Now, of course, like I mentioned, that's not anything that was caused by the lift kit, because it was like that before with the stock suspension as well. But that's just something that I wanted to point out here. Now, you know, back to the whole handling thing. Obviously, it's not going to handle, you know, good, because it's a Jeep. Jeeps do not handle well, and by handling I just mean like going around turns and stuff like that. Obviously it handles amazing off-road because that's what it's made to do. But I would say for a Jeep, and for a Jeep that's this old, I would say it does handle very well, surprisingly. Obviously you can't go around turns like you would be able to in a Porsche, for example. It's really not that bad considering what it is. One of the best parts about driving a lift Jeep is that you literally don't have to worry about anything on the road. So if you have like huge speed bumps or huge potholes, or if there's like trash laying in the road, you literally don't have to worry about it because it's not going to hurt your Jeep at all. You can literally drive over anything and it won't do anything to your Jeep. Now, if you guys didn't know, I used to have a Dodge Challenger Scat Pack, which of course we did sell, and we are getting a Jeep Wrangler 392 in place of that. But with that car, I had to literally be extremely cautious of anywhere that I was going. And if I was driving someplace that was new to me, I've never been there, I always had to look ahead of time to make sure I could actually make it there in the Challenger. Because if there's huge speed bumps, or, you know, it's a gravel road, for example, then I just did not want to drive that car over a road like that, like over huge speed bumps or a gravel road, because it could, you know, tear off the splitter in the front or do some body damage to the underside of the vehicle. And of course, with a Jeep, you just don't have to be worried about anything like that. It could even be common places, like if you're just driving through like a parking garage, for example, some of those speed bumps can be huge. And even with me, I was on the stock suspension on my Challenger, I still scraped many times on speed bumps just driving into a parking garage, for example. So it's not that I was on lower suspension or anything like that. It's just that, you know, a lot of speed bumps are just too high up, and it just, you know, scraped. So that's probably one of my favorite parts about driving a lifted Jeep, is that I have so much more freedom with where I can drive, and I don't always have to be worried about scraping or anything like that. So definitely one of my favorite parts about driving a Jeep. And of course, I'm very excited to be able to take delivery of my 392 Wrangler and have another Jeep as well. So I figured, since I've been giving you guys weekly updates of my 392 Wrangler order, I would also give you guys an update this week as well. And unfortunately, just like last week, my update this week is that I don't have an update. The only thing that I know right now is my VIN number and that it has been scheduled for production. And the website, the vehicle order tracking website on Jeep.com, is still way behind. It's still showing that the VIN number is TBD, and it's still showing just order confirmed, that it's still in the first step. So I don't know what's going on, but that's the update that I have. So still got to be patient, even though I'm very impatient, but also, of course, very excited to be able to take delivery of that Jeep. So let's see how fast we can take this turn without flipping. So I'm not going to go too fast, but all right, so that wasn't too bad. Obviously, a whole bunch of tilt and body roll in the Jeep, but at least we didn't flip. Now, obviously, we do have the warning right here that this vehicle is easy to flip. So good thing we have that, so I didn't flip during that turn. So wanted to also demonstrate to you guys the steering wheel here once again, since we are on a more open road now. You can kind of see how much input I'm giving and see how much it's actually affecting the steering if you look straight ahead. So that's kind of the minimum amount of input that I can put in before the Jeep actually like steers. Now if I just do it like this, obviously nothing's happening. It's not affecting the steering wheel whatsoever. We are taking this nice sweeping turn here at around 35 miles per hour. Obviously this is absolutely nothing, even for the Jeep. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a quick example of how this thing handles on the open road. So of course, doing pretty good here. Got a bit of a tighter turn. Now of course, with a Jeep like this, when it's lifted, you do have to slow down more before turns, more than usual. Of course, with a vehicle that's higher up, the center of gravity, of course, is also going to be higher. So it's just safer to slow down because, of course, when the center of gravity is higher, it's just easier to flip. Now, something else that I also wanted to mention is that when you're driving into a parking spot just like this right up ahead, you can see that the curb at the very front is kind of high up. So obviously with a lifted Jeep, you literally don't have to be worried about a single thing because, of course, you are definitely going to clear that. And let me get out here and show you guys what I'm talking about. So obviously if you're in like a Challenger, for example, with a lower splitter, then you really have to be careful about where you are going and where you're parking, because right here you can see I still have a foot or two to go, and I'm not going to hit anything on the actual body. It's just going to hit the tires right here. Of course, if I was driving the Challenger, many times if I knew that the curb was very high up like that, then I would have to, you know, stop, get out, make sure I'm still good to go, still see how much room I have left up front, and, you know, drive up like a few inches, get out, do the same thing. Now with the Jeep, obviously, if I want to get up as close as possible, I can just keep going until the tires hit. That's also a very common reason why, you know, car guys, they like to always back into their parking spots because of that reason. But yeah, guys, like I said, I literally haven't had any issues with the drivability after getting this thing lifted 2 years ago. And of course, like I said, I also am very excited to take delivery of my 392 Wrangler. Hopefully it's going to be coming here in a few months. But I am, of course, very impatient and very excited for that to get here. And, you know, once again, just a quick recap. The only actual, like, negative thing, even though it's not really a complaint, just an observation, is that the tires do rub the mud flaps, and we did have to, of course, trim the front bumper end caps. But, of course, that's not going to affect the drivability whatsoever. So, other than that, I've just noticed the driveline vibrations, which, of course, were fixed with the slip yoke eliminator. So, yeah, really no complaints whatsoever. And once again, I do have the Rusty's Off-Road 3-inch advanced lift kit if you guys are interested in checking that out. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any questions or comments, make sure to drop those down in the comment section below. If you guys have any video suggestions for videos you would like to see in the future, also drop those down in the comment section below. And if you guys liked this video or found it entertaining, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.